March 25th, 1977, we were given a new hope from a galaxy far, far away. And ever since then, we've explored this new galaxy through movies, TV shows, books, and games. And here in the War Room, we're going to take a look at the several various games that have come about because of Star Wars. I'm going to cover a few video games first. One being The Old Republic, which is an MMORPG that came out in 2011. And it has several expansions to it, and in order of appearance are Rise of the Hutts, Galactic Starfighter, Galactic Strongholds, Shadow of Revan, Knights of the Fallen Empire, Knights of the Eternal Throne, and finally Onslaught, which came out 2019. This is one that I have played before, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I have several characters, but I've kind of fallen off the bandwagon here, and I'd like to get back into it eventually. So help me out. The more you watch, the more you show your friends, the better it is for all of us. I can get more content out there for everybody. Then there's also one of my other favorites. The first one that I ever played was known as Rebel Assault 2 back in 1990. It came out in 1995, and that was a single player, a story playthrough. Another one of my favorites is Galactic Battlegrounds, which came out in 2001, and basically this is sort of like Empire. It's one of these civilization type of it's like StarCraft. You know, you have your faction. You put up buildings and such to gather resources in order to grow your army and defeat your opponents. There's also Battlefront and Battlefront 2, which came out in 2015 and 2017. But there were others before this by other game publishers. But Battlefront and Battlefront 2, but by EA, are the most recent ones. Now I'm going to talk about the role-playing games, actual tabletop role-playing games for Star Wars. Basically, there have been 3 companies that put out a role-playing game, starting in 1987. The first company was West End Games. They had the license till 1999. They lost the license for Star Wars when they declared bankruptcy. It was a D6 system modeled after their Ghostbusters role-playing game. But like I said, they went into bankruptcy and they lost the license. Wizards of the Coast was the next company to pick up the license. They made their version of Star Wars role-playing game. It was a D20 system. You all know of Wizards of the Coast if you're familiar with Magic the Gathering, and also Dungeons and Dragons, which is in its 5th edition. Those books by Wizards of the Coast are out of print. In 2010, they decided not to release, or they decided not to renew the license for Star Wars. And in 2011, at Gen Con, Fantasy Flight picked up, or they announced their acquisition of the license for Star Wars. And they have three lines for the Star Wars, depending on how, well, not so much how, but who you want to play. They have the Edge of the Empire, in which you're playing some sort of smuggler, bounty hunter, that kind of person. You're playing in the Outer Rim, outside the central planets. And then you have the Age of the Rebellion, which takes place during the Galactic Civil War. And you're a rebel. So you imagine what you're going to be doing in that game. And then you also have Force and Destiny, which you're playing a Force sensitive during the Imperial era. So you're outcast, and you can actually go either dark side or light side, depends on really how you play it. But you're Force sensitive during the reign of the Emperor. Pretty much everything else I'm going to be talking about now, board games, card games, dice and card games, are all made by Fantasy Flight Games. And that's where you can go if you're interested in any of this. Okay? First thing I'm going to cover are the board games. They have 3. And the names are pretty self-explanatory. You have Star Wars Outer Rim, Star Wars Imperial Assault, and Star Wars Rebellion. Star Wars Outer Rim takes about 2-3 hours to play, and it requires 1 to 4 people to play. So basically, you can play this as a solo game. Imperial Assault plays between 1 to 2 hours, and 1 to 5 people can play. So this also can be played as a solo game. And finally, then there's Star Wars Rebellion, which takes 3 or 4 hours and requires 2 to 4 people to play. So grab your girlfriend, grab your boyfriend, grab whoever, sit down and play. And if you like board games, those in Star Wars, try them out. That's the way to go. And then there's card games. You have Empire vs. Rebellion, and of course Star Wars, the card game. Empire vs. Rebellion will be at least 10 minutes long. Sometimes more, it depends. It's a 2-player game. Star Wars, the card game, is about 30 minutes to an hour. And again, it's a two players. And these are card games. Following on, there's Star Wars Destiny, which is a dice and card game. It plays in about 30 minutes, and it's a 2-player game. And then finally, you have miniature games, which I'm a miniature fan myself. I got started with historical miniatures, but I like Star Wars, I like miniatures. What's not to love? And the best part, there's 3 flavors for the miniatures games from Fantasy Flight. But it's not... Yes, they have lists and expansions for the different eras from the movies. So you have like the First Order expansions, you have the Galactic Empire, you have the Republic, the Galactic Republic, you have neutral factions, you have the Rebel Alliance, you have the Resistance, you have what they call Scum and Villainy. So that's, your guys like Boba Fett and those nefarious characters. And of course, like for X-Wing, you have the Separatist Alliance. And I'll cover those in just in a moment. So, like I said, there's 3 flavors of miniatures from Fantasy Flight. You have X-Wing, which is basically the small ships, like the X-Wing, the TIE Fighter, the B-Wing, the A-Wing, those size ships. And it's basically, they're not your fleet-sized battles. This is your dogfights. There is a second edition. And most games will probably run 30 to 45 minutes. Maybe longer, it just depends. And you're going to have at least 2 people playing. Now you can get your friends together, and each side, you'll have your own ships. So battles might take a little bit longer than 45 minutes, depending on how you play. So this is your smaller space fights, your man-to-man type of fighting. Then you have your fleet size, Star Wars Armada. So these are your capital ships, the large ships. They're going at it, big ships. And that takes about 1 to 2 hours. Or 2 hours for the Armada. Again, you have your different factions, for it. Then, what's a war game? What's a miniature war game without being on the ground? Right? So you have Star Wars Legions. This is man-to-man, on the ground. And, it doesn't get any more exciting than that, as far as I'm concerned. You're moving men, you're moving pieces, you're rolling, you're seeing who's winning, who's dying, who's living. This one takes 1 to 2 hours. And, like I said, you can get a bunch of your friends together, y'all pick a side, pick a faction, and just go to town and have tons of fun. The nice thing about these 3 miniature games is, one, there's organized play, so you can get a group of friends together and follow along with the stuff, campaigns and whatnot from Fantasy Flight. There's also tournaments that you can do for this too, and especially if you're a very competitive person, definitely get into that. So Star Wars, it's been around for a long time, and if you're like me, I've always enjoyed it. I in some way it's been a part of my life. I've watched the movies. I haven't really watched the TV show, any of the TV shows really, except for a little bit of The Mandalorian. I've read a couple of the books. I've played some of these games. I've played X-Wing. I've played the Old Republic, Galactic Battlegrounds, and I enjoy them. I love Star Wars. So, like I said, if you want to get into any of this, go to Fantasy Flight. You'll be able to find stuff, get stuff. Go to your local game store, because they should have stuff right there on hand. So go out into this galaxy, explore it, and have fun, y'all.